everyone. George Packard, Family Lawn and Landscape. Today we're going to talk about should you be quoting per hour or by the job. There's a difference, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about both of them. First off, we're going to talk about the pros and cons to this thing. So here's the pros. Here's the first thing that I think about, and there's not many. It allows you to give the estimate quickly. So in other words, I've been guilty of this. I've gone to some jobs that were so massive, and I looked them over, big clean-outs, things of that nature, and I was like, holy smokes, I'm not quite sure how to bid this thing because it is so massive, So then I think to myself, okay, and this is probably the only pro to the whole thing, is it gets you out of there quicker. Let's say you told them you want $50 per man hour to work on this thing. Okay, that's something that's going to get you out of there real quick. It's cut and dry. They know what it is. You told them what it is. It's $50 an hour per man to come in here. So if you got two guys, if they're there for an hour, it's $100. If they're there all day, it's $1,000. So that's the nice part. That's really the only pro part of this whole thing that I can see, and I'm guilty of doing it a lot. I used to do it a lot. I've since changed my approach on those things. I try. It's almost exclusively to not bid them by the hour, to bid them by the job, and here's why. There's the biggest turnoff to a customer is not knowing an exact amount. So it's been my experience that the customers they want to know, is this going to cost me $500 or is this going to cost me $5,000? They don't like to be surprised, okay? So having said that, let's talk about the cons to this approach, okay? So the cons to going in there and saying, I've got to figure in my equipment, I've got to figure my expenses, I've got to pay my guys, I've got fuel, I've got equipment that's going to come in there. I've got to account for that stuff. So that's the first thing. So this is something you got to figure out ahead of time. It's like, look, if I'm going to come in and I'm going to do lawn mowing, let's say I'm just hypothetically throwing it out there saying I need $55 an hour to go out there and mow lawns. I can throw that price out there, and again, it's just a fictitious number I'm throwing out there. It's different all around the country, but when you throw that number out, you have to have in your mind that I do have these expenses to cover. Okay, so if it's on the average property, it costs me $1.50 in fuel. Okay, I need to get a couple bucks for the mower. I need to get a couple bucks for the trimmer. A couple bucks for the edger. You throw all these things into it because at the end of the day, you have to pay for that equipment. You have those expenses and you have to cover them. So keep in mind where they don't like to hear that open-ended, $50 an hour. They don't want to hear that. They really don't. So I've cost myself a lot of work by not taking the time to actually sit there and figure it all out and say, look, what's worst case scenario? I might be here a week. I might be here, 4 days or whatever. I needed to take the time to do it, and you really should do it. So the whole idea of this video is to, in my opinion, just tell you, I'll give you the pros and cons to it, but in my opinion, I get a lot more work by giving them an end figure, okay? Second con to it is you got to watch like your breaks and stuff. If they're paying you by the hour, they expect you to be in there humping ass. They don't expect you to be sitting there sucking down coffee or smoking cigarettes or anything because they know they're paying you by the hour. They don't like that. So I've always felt whenever I went on these jobs where they were paying me by the hour, I felt like I had to just hustle. I just absolutely had to hustle, and so do the rest of my guys. So that's something you gotta figure in. That's a con to it. So generally, again, the customer doesn't want this. They don't. They want that end result question. So they'll get angry, and I've had this happen a lot. I've worked at jobs 2 and 3 days, and then when you come up with a bill, they're just shocked at the cost of this bill. So I think that's a big enough reason right there. And you may not get paid, and you need to realize that if you go to work on one of these jobs and all of a sudden you let it get, you don't know what it is, you didn't get half down, and because you weren't sure how long it was going to take you to do the job, so now you're expecting payment at the end of the job. Well, if the customer is angry and says, hey, you guys took 3 breaks yesterday, and you guys didn't get here till such and such time, and you left at such time, and they will, believe me, they will find an excuse to bitch. and you're going to have a hard time in a lot of cases getting your money. So I strongly encourage you not to go this route. So when you look at the giving them the bottom line price right off the bat, you know, the pro to that is you've given them what they asked for. They wanted an estimate. You told them, hey, it's going to be $500. That's what it's going to be. And in your mind, yeah, it's going to take you more time because you have to sit there and you have to figure everything out. But that's cool. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're paid for. Okay. I even put a little thing in my estimates where I try to set it up. I know there's a lot of estimates I go on where it costs me money. Obviously, I have to drive an hour to go to them. You know, spend a couple hours with them, and you got to drive back. You're still expense there, you know. So I even add things in on my estimates for estimating. You know, I'll put in $100 on every estimate. Let's say, for example, for landscaping, because they're all over the place. I'll throw an additional $100 on there for an estimate, and you know, if you get half your estimates, you know, basically you're getting your $50 out of that, you know. But you got to do something to cover your expenses. And one of the other things that I do too, especially if they're a long ways away, is I'll tell them straight up, I need $50 to come out there and give you your estimate, and I'll be glad to put it towards your estimate. You know, if you decide to go with us, but to drive that far, especially if they're anything over an hour, I'm animate about that, charging them. And I've eliminated a lot of tire kickers by doing that. So just a good thing to keep in mind when you're doing this. The pro thing, I mean, I can't think of much for cons as far as giving them that price, because, you know, you gave them exactly what they wanted. They wanted to know how much it was going to cost. Don't have surprises in there. If you do run across surprises, like say change orders, like you come in and you bid a job, and let's say it's irrigation work or what have you, and all of a sudden you find yourself knee deep, you know, in this donkey, so to speak, and you're like, holy crap, oh man, I'm going to be here all week. There's broken pipes everywhere. I didn't see that. I didn't plan on that. And then you're just like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, here's what you do. I approach the customer and I say, look, when in my scope of work, it's going to be this, and this. This is what I'm going to give you. Have something in there that if I do run across damages that are beyond the scope of what my work is going to be, there will be an additional charge for this. Talk to them ahead of time. If that possibility exists, that it could be a major thing, you need to talk to them and say, look, I'm going to tear into it right now for $500. I'm going to tear into this, for example, and as long as it falls under these parameters, I can get it done for $500. If it's more serious than that, if I get into something that is, you know, extremely rocky conditions or whatever, where I have to bring in heavy equipment and whatnot, that's going to change my price. But that has to be talked over with the customer, and it has to be documented on a piece of paper. So there's none of this handshake bullshit, because that doesn't go far anymore at all. Believe me, it just doesn't. So that being said, I guess my whole take on the thing is to give them a number and stick with that number. Forget about the per hour thing, because there's a lot of headaches that come with that. So take the extra time, even if you're unsure. If you're unsure of the project and it looks like a massive project to you, don't just say $50 an hour per man. Come in there. They don't want that. Come in there because they're just going to kick you out the door, okay? And they're just going to get the next bid. Now you've already spent your time there. Try and get it, okay? You've already spent time in advertising. You got them to call you. You spent money on driving out there to see this guy, and your time is worth money. Try and get this. Take that time. I don't care if you have something important to do, and this has happened to me. I've had something important to do in the afternoon or whatever, and I really wanted to get home, or my kids are coming home from school or whatever. I wanted to go see them, or coming from the other states, and I would quickly say it's going to be so much an hour. I just wasted my time, his time, the expense that I have put into this with the advertising and going to see him. I should have just taken the time, take an extra hour, half hour, whatever it is, and just give it your best shot at what you think it's going to be. Okay, so hopefully this helps. This has been George Packard, Family Lawn and Landscape. Don't forget to subscribe, and all of our videos are archived on our website links below. Thanks for watching.